second of the topics that we were going to be talking about tonight, and narrowing it down a little bit, and that was a pretty world-shattering big question to start with. The second one is much more about, I think, things that would be closer to the people in this room. If all this change is happening and these things are flying around and we're creating Pidgin and a Creole and everything around it, what is that going to do to the boundaries between, let's say, three of the more traditional distinctions, three buckets that we have in our world, which is the bucket or the distinction of design, branding and advertising? How are the boundaries going to start to become blurred by all of this? Is it going to be completely pushed away and there's going to be a new industry? Or is it something which is just going to start transmogrifying into something different?
I think there'll always be, different. There are different clients, different organisations, and they all want a slightly different thing. And there'll always be I don't know what the boundaries will be, but there'll always be different types of companies. What everyone wants to be, if you're frank about it, is you want to be in charge. You want to be the guy that tells the other guys what to do. And for a long time, that was advertising, because they had this thing that chief executives, who otherwise were afraid of talking to creative type people, thought, there's this magic box, I don't quite understand how they do it, but I know if I can go to their building once every 6 months, they might just do something for me, which would make my business worth twice what it's worth currently. And so they went, I can bear it. Usually I'll talk to my accountants and my process design guys, but occasionally I'll go and see these guys because they could do something radical for me. And gradually, I think what's happened in the last sort of 20 years is the companies have started to understand how ad agencies work and what they do. They know how to do research. They know how to take an ad into production. They know how to do all that stuff. And a bit of the luster's gone. But what's interesting is
that because other people can do it too?
It's because lots of people can do it, and do you know what? There's just been enough brand managers who've gone into enough ad agencies, and now they're running the companies, and they just know how to do it. It's not that complicated. They figured it out. They commission the research themselves now. They often get in creative consultants to work with them. But there still is value in creativity for companies, because it can do amazing things to them. If you can change the way a Beetle looks, you can transform the fortunes of Volkswagen. I mean, it's a valuable thing. So there is still something interesting going on there, but you need to be, I think I want to be operating in the bit of the world where companies don't really understand how it works. Because that's where the value is. That's where you could get to do stuff that they go, I don't know, but I'll fucking let you have a crack because it might work out. And I think that's often, though, I think where that is so I'm not interested in the distinctions between the companies within there. I think the interesting places to work are where clients don't really understand it. And often that is, I think, in the bits where you've got your hands on making things. So I think the best creative companies are the companies where they don't see a distinction between thinking up ideas and making things. One of the things that makes ad agencies so rubbish now is that you get creatives who draw pictures and go, whoa, I can't do anything else, mate, hand that over. And if you work with anyone who's young and creative, they never ever work like that. You work with a kid who's got logic on his computer. He doesn't say, well, I'll write a song on my guitar and then I hand it to my producer and he makes that. He goes, I'm going to get stuck in, I'm going to get the beats in there and I'm going to make a record. And people who work with film work like that and pictures. And I think the exciting companies are the ones who are able to work like that. They're the ones who clients really don't understand. And the companies who are best at that are often, I think, are design companies. Not necessarily graphic design, like product design, often quite good like that, but they can actually get their hands dirty and do stuff and make a thing. And that's exciting, and clients don't understand it, and so they'll pay a lot of money for it.
But aren't you being quite defeatist? Like, you just want a gullible client who will let you
No, I think that
some of the more interesting.
Any of Martin's clients in the audience?
Surely some of them.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. They're on the panel.
Not anymore, though.
I'm interested. I think what you said is quite interesting, but I would add to this, or go further, and I'd go further and say that here's these bots with these name tags on them, old name tags or current or future name tags. I am this person, you are that person, you do that, I do that. And I think what it is interesting in life is this bit here between us. This is what's interesting, here and here and here. And I think if you guys want to set a business up, I think you've got to look at these.
Yeah, but Geoff, how do you talk about it? To Tim, how do you talk about it? The problem is, how do you
because
how do you
can't
talk
name
about it?
You
There's no
don't know.
language.
No, there's no language for it. This is the
It's
beauty
Tim's
of
fault.
the
There's
thing.
no language.
This is it. This is absolutely the wonderful thing. There is no language for it.
But
You should be doing, you don't know what it is, but it is what you should be doing. You know, and it's you guys.
that's quite hard to sell.
It's hard to sell, but it's
Put that in a cred stick.
it between these various things that we do. I am a product designer, I'm a writer. There's this bit here between those bits that I think is the territory that we should inhabit. And I think then it gets interesting because I think it gets, in life, it's very interesting when we don't actually know what the fuck we're doing. I think then you think, my God, I don't know what I'm doing. And what it does, it lifts our feet off the ground. And we are the parameters and the judgment systems that we've had, and we're very secure with because we've got loads of experience with, and we have certifications to say that we have this. We can drive a tractor, or we can be a brain surgeon, whatever the certification might be. But there's no certificates for this thing that was between the chairs, and that I think is where we should be. That I think is the future. In other words, it's this bit between the so-called known expertise. Switching back to education, you've all been through it. I went partially through it, I had 3 or 4 education. But there it is, that's history. Between the two, you have French and English. Oh, this chap's not any good at French, he's no good at English, must be a duffer. So you maths, you know, fucking maths you can't spell. Maths you can't add up, you can't do this. But these people are here and they're brilliant. It's because they inhabit the cracks.
Yet another phrase that I'll walk away with this evening, resounding through my brain. Yes.
It's going well so far. I like it.
Over to you, Matt.
Yes, well, I've spent a lot of my time, effort and energy trying to inhabit the cracks through my career. It's true. I mean, I'll just come back to this kind of, this thing of kind of creating creoles. In the
Which
time,
is inhabiting the cracks.
it's kind of making something where there wasn't something before, and the making part of it. I mean, my work generally is talking, sitting, hanging out with, trying to make stuff with software engineers who are my favourite people in the world, because they are super gifted at language. They're super gifted at manipulating languages, literally languages that make things come into the world, and then fearless about creating bridges between things. The really good ones are. The really good a really good creative software engineer is probably the nearest to a Gandalf class being that we have in the world at the moment. I mean, I love finding those people, working with them, pestering them.